To our amazing viewers at Cheating Tales Lab, we'd love to hear, which part of the world are you joining us from? Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Fractures. Roman Atkinson sat in his home office, the glow of 3 monitors illuminating his weathered face. At 42, he carried the controlled intensity of his 15 years in military intelligence, sharp eyes that missed nothing, a posture that never fully relaxed. His security consulting firm had made him comfortable, but success had come with a price he was only beginning to understand. The house was too quiet. Christy used to fill it with music, laughter, the smell of her terrible but endearing attempts at new recipes. Now, silence dominated every room like an unwelcome guest. Working late again? Christy's voice cut through his thoughts. She stood in the doorway, 38 and still striking, her auburn hair pulled back in a way that seemed designed to create distance. Client presentation tomorrow, Roman replied, not taking his eyes off the financial security analysis on his screen. The Meridian contract. Of course. Her tone carried an edge sharp enough to draw blood. It's always something, isn't it? Roman finally looked at her. Really looked. The warmth that had drawn him to her 12 years ago had been replaced by something cold, something calculated. He'd noticed the late-night texts, the new expensive perfume, the gym membership she actually used now after years of letting it collect dust. He wasn't stupid. His training had taught him to recognize patterns, to trust his instincts. But some truths were easier to ignore than confront. I'm trying to build something here, Christy. For us. She laughed, a brittle sound that echoed in the space between them. For us. Right. She turned to leave, then paused. I'm staying at my sister's this weekend. I need space. Roman watched her go, his jaw tightening. She'd been pulling away for 6 months, each excuse more transparent than the last. But he'd been patient, hoping whatever phase this was would pass. That patience was running out. After she left, Roman did something he'd been avoiding. He opened his laptop's tracking software, the same program he used for client security assessments. 3 clicks later, he was looking at Christy's phone location history. The Grandview Hotel. Tuesday nights. Thursday afternoons. Always the same location, same pattern, for the past 4 months. Roman sat back, his military discipline the only thing keeping his hands steady. He'd faced insurgents in Kandahar, navigated political minefields and classified operations that could never see daylight. But this personal betrayal, cut deeper than any enemy fire. He needed more information. Roman pulled up property records for the Grandview. The penthouse suite was owned by McCarthy Developments. He recognized the name, Jonathan McCarthy, a real estate developer who'd made headlines for his luxury projects and his ruthless business tactics. Roman had met him once, at a charity gala Christy insisted they attend. McCarthy had been everything Roman wasn't: smooth, charming, wealthy in the flashy way that attracted attention. He'd shaken Roman's hand with a grip that felt like a challenge, his eyes lingering on Christy a moment too long. Amateur, Roman muttered, beginning his deep dive. Within an hour, he had McCarthy's full profile: 45, divorced twice, multiple lawsuits from former business partners, whispers of intimidation tactics that never quite made it to court. A predator in an expensive suit. Roman's phone buzzed. Eugene Wade, his neighbor, a retired detective who'd moved in 3 years ago and become an unexpected friend. You around? Need to talk. Important. Come over, Roman typed back. Eugene arrived 10 minutes later, his linebacker build filling the doorway. At 60, he still carried the alertness of his cop days, eyes that had seen too much and forgot nothing. Beer, Roman offered. This isn't a beer conversation. Eugene's face was grim. I need you to listen carefully and not interrupt. Can you do that? Something in Eugene's tone triggered Roman's old combat instincts. Talk. There's a guy who's been watching your house. Black Mercedes, tinted windows, parks 2 streets over. I ran the plates through some friends still on the force. Registered to a shell company that traces back to McCarthy Developments. Roman's expression didn't change, but his mind was already racing. There's more, Eugene continued. 3 days ago, I saw someone check your gas meter. Utility company says they have no record of any service call to this address. Guy had the uniform, the clipboard, everything. But he was here for 20 minutes, Roman. 20 minutes for a meter check. You think McCarthy. I think your wife's boyfriend is planning something, and I think you need to take this seriously. Eugene pulled out his phone, showing Roman photos. I've been documenting everything. Call it cop paranoia, but something feels wrong. Roman studied the images, the surveillance vehicle, the fake utility worker, timestamps showing a pattern of observation that made his blood run cold. This wasn't just an affair. This was something else entirely. How long have you known about Christy? Eugene grimaced. Month or so. Saw her leave with him one night when you were in Seattle for that conference. I'm sorry, brother. Roman nodded slowly. Don't be. You might have just saved my life. Chapter 2. The Warning. Roman spent the next day operating on 2 levels. Surface calm, while his mind calculated probabilities and threats. He went to his office, conducted his client presentation for the Meridian contract, smiled and shook hands like his world wasn't unraveling. But every free moment, he was digging deeper into Jonathan McCarthy. What he found made his blood run cold. McCarthy's second wife, Dolores McCarthy, had died 4 years ago in what was ruled an accidental fall down the stairs of their vacation home. Convenient timing. She'd filed for divorce 2 weeks earlier. The life insurance payout was $3 million. His first wife, Catherine McCarthy, had left the state and lived under her maiden name, Wiggins. Roman found her through a private investigator contact, and the 30-minute phone call left him shaken. He's a monster, Catherine had whispered, her voice still carrying fear years after their divorce. Charming at first, but the mask slips. He threatened me, my family. I had proof he was sabotaging my father's business to force me to stay, but my lawyer said we'd never make it stick. I took the settlement and ran. Did he ever threaten your life? The pause on the line was answer enough. I sleep with a gun under my pillow, Mr. Atkinson. Even now, even with 3 states between us. That's the kind of man Jonathan McCarthy is. Roman thanked her and ended the call, his training kicking in to suppress the rage building in his chest. He'd dealt with targets before, enemy combatants, corrupt officials, men who'd sold out their country for money. But this was personal in a way that made it both harder and easier. McCarthy wasn't just sleeping with his wife. He was planning to eliminate Roman. The question was why go through such elaborate planning? Then it clicked. Christy had a substantial trust fund from her late father, but the terms were ironclad. If she divorced, she forfeited 75%. But if Roman died while they were still married, she inherited everything, including his life insurance and business holdings. Roman was worth more dead than divorced. That evening, he worked in his home office, appearing absorbed in security protocols while actually reviewing the property surveillance Eugene had provided. Every angle of his house, every entry point, mapped and analyzed. Around 9 p.m., his phone buzzed with a text from Christy, staying another night at Jennifer's. Don't wait up. Jennifer Faulkner was Christy's sister, and Roman had already confirmed through a quick call that Christy wasn't there and hadn't been all weekend. The lies were getting sloppier, or maybe she just didn't care anymore. Roman was about to respond when his security system pinged, motion detected at the back fence. He pulled up the camera feed and saw nothing, but his instincts screamed warning. Then Eugene's text arrived, all caps, Roman. Leave now. Trust me. Roman moved on pure training, grabbed his go bag from the office closet, old habits from his intelligence days, his laptop, and headed for the door. As he reached for the handle, Eugene was already there, his face pale. No questions. We walk. Now. Eugene. Now. Something in Eugene's voice, the command presence of a man who'd talked people off ledges and out of hostage situations, made Roman comply. They walked, Eugene's hand firm on Roman's arm, guiding him down the sidewalk at a pace that looked casual but covered ground fast. Don't look back, Eugene said quietly. 3 blocks. Then we can talk. Roman counted steps, his mind racing through scenarios. Gas leak? Home invasion? What had Eugene seen that triggered this evacuation? They were 2.5 blocks away when Roman heard it. The first sirens, distant but approaching fast. His instinct was to turn, to run back, but Eugene's grip tightened. Keep walking. At 3 blocks, Eugene finally stopped. Now you can look. Roman turned, and the breath left his lungs. His house was surrounded by emergency vehicles, fire trucks, police cars, and ambulance. The front door stood open, and even from this distance, he could see the organized chaos of first responders moving in and out. His knees buckled, and Eugene caught him, easing him down to sit on someone's front lawn. What happened? Eugene's jaw was tight. I was in my workshop, saw someone approach your house. Same guy from the utility company photos. He went around back, was there maybe 5 minutes. Then he left, and I smelled it. Gas. Strong. I called 911 immediately, then ran over and got you out. Carbon monoxide? Natural gas. Your lines were tampered with. If you'd stayed in that house another hour. Eugene didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Roman watched the emergency response, his mind clicking into the cold, analytical state that had kept him alive in war zones. This wasn't an accident. This was attempted murder, staged to look like a tragic gas leak. The grieving widow would have collected millions, consoled by her wealthy lover, and no one would have questioned it. Except Eugene had been watching. Detective Mel Patton approached them, notepad in hand. Roman knew him from community events, a decent cop who'd rather be fishing. Mr. Atkinson, you're lucky to be alive. Your neighbor's call saved you. We found evidence of tampering with your gas line. Someone deliberately created a leak. Evidence. Roman's voice was steady, controlled. The shutoff valve was partially opened after being damaged. This wasn't wear and tear. We're treating this as attempted murder. Roman nodded slowly, watching them photograph his house, process his life as a crime scene. Detective, I think I can help with your investigation. Chapter 3. The Web Revealed. The police station's interview room was deliberately uncomfortable. Hard chairs, fluorescent lights, the faint smell of burnt coffee, and broken dreams. Roman sat across from Detective Patton and his partner, Detective Raoul Snow, a younger cop with sharp eyes and a reputation for closing cases. Walk us through your marriage, Mr. Atkinson, Snow said, his pen poised over his notepad. Roman had spent the night at Eugene's house, using the hours to organize his evidence, his timeline, his case against McCarthy. Now he laid it out with the precision of a military briefing. My wife, Christy, has been having an affair with Jonathan McCarthy for approximately 4 months. I have location data, credit card receipts, and witness testimony. He slid a folder across the table, printouts of everything he'd compiled. Patton's eyebrows rose as he flipped through the documentation. You've been busy. I was military intelligence for 15 years. Old habits. Roman leaned forward. But it's not just an affair. McCarthy has a pattern. His second wife died in suspicious circumstances 4 years ago, just after filing for divorce. His first wife lives in hiding, still afraid of him. And now someone tries to kill me, with my wife conveniently out of town. Snow exchanged a look with Patton. That's a serious accusation. Check McCarthy's phone records. Check the fake utility worker's identity. I'm betting you'll find connections. Roman pulled out another document. I also have the name of the shell company that owns the surveillance vehicle that's been watching my house. It traces back to McCarthy Developments. Patton was making notes now, his relaxed demeanor replaced with the focus of a cop who'd just caught a scent. We'll need your phone data, your wife's phone, any evidence you have. Already compiled. Roman slid another folder across. I've also included contact information for Catherine Wiggins, McCarthy's first wife. She'll talk to you, but she's scared. You'll need to guarantee her protection. For the next 2 hours, Roman walked them through everything. The timeline of Christie's affair, McCarthy's background, the surveillance Eugene had documented, the pattern of behavior that pointed to premeditated murder. Here's what I think happened, Roman said, pulling up photos on his phone. McCarthy seduced my wife. He's done it before, finds married women with money, isolates them from their husbands, makes them believe in a fantasy life together. But Christy has a trust fund with divorce penalties. She's worth more to him if I'm dead. So he plans your murder, stages it as an accident, Snow said, following the logic. She collects the insurance and inheritance, and eventually they end up together. No one questions the grieving widow who finds comfort in a new relationship months later. Exactly. Roman's voice was ice. Except Eugene Wade was paying attention. Patton leaned back in his chair. We're going to bring McCarthy in for questioning, and we'll need to talk to your wife. She doesn't know, Roman said quietly, about the murder attempt. She probably thinks she's visiting her lover while I work late, oblivious that tonight was supposed to be my last night alive. You sound remarkably calm about that, Snow observed. Roman met his gaze. Detective, I've been shot at by Taliban fighters, I've survived IED blasts, and I've interrogated war criminals. My wife's betrayal hurts, but I've learned to separate emotion from action. Right now, I need to stay alive and make sure the people who tried to kill me face justice. We'll put protection on you, Patton said. McCarthy might try again. I can handle myself. But I appreciate the offer. Roman stood. One more thing. Don't tip your hand yet. If McCarthy knows you're onto him, he'll lawyer up and you'll get nothing. Give me 48 hours. For what? To make him confess. Snow laughed, but it died when he saw Roman's expression. You're serious. I'm not asking permission, detective. I'm telling you what's going to happen. McCarthy is arrogant. Men like him always are. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else, that his money and connections make him untouchable. But he's never dealt with someone like me. Patton stood too, his cop instincts warring with his practical side. Mr. Atkinson, I can't condone civilian vigilantism. I'm not talking about vigilantism. I'm talking about giving you evidence that'll put him away for life. Roman headed for the door, then paused. 48 hours. Then you can have everything. Him, my wife, the whole conspiracy. But I need to do this my way. After Roman left, Snow looked at his partner. Should we stop him? Patton was quiet for a long moment, studying the folders Roman had left behind. Man just found out his wife tried to have him killed. He's earned the right to some answers. Besides, he's not wrong. McCarthy will lawyer up the second we approach him officially. If Atkinson can get us a confession, that's a dangerous game. Yeah. Patton's smile was grim. But I got a feeling Roman Atkinson knows how to play dangerous games. Chapter 4, Building the Trap. Roman spent the first 24 hours after the gas leak becoming a ghost in his own life. He'd learned long ago that the best way to hunt was to make your target think they'd won. From a suite at the Riverside Hotel, paid for in cash, registered under an alias, he coordinated with Eugene and assembled his team. Not cops, not official channels. People from his old life. The ones who understood that sometimes justice required operating in shadows. Curtis Frank arrived first, a barrel-chested man of 50 with tattoos that told stories and scars that told more. They'd served together in Afghanistan, where Curtis had been the team's communications expert. Now he ran a private investigation firm that specialized in cases the cops couldn't touch. Brother, you look like hell, Curtis said, pulling Roman into a brief, fierce hug. Feel worse. I need your help. Name it. Roman laid out the situation with military efficiency. The affair, the murder attempt, McCarthy's history, the tight timeline they were working with. Curtis whistled low. You're talking about taking down a millionaire with connections. That's not a weekend project. I have evidence. I need leverage. Roman pulled up McCarthy's financial records on his laptop, documents Curtis's people had acquired through methods Roman chose not to examine too closely. He's leveraged to his eyeballs. The penthouse, the cars, the lifestyle, it's all built on credit and image. He's got 3 major projects about to go under, and he's been cooking the books to keep investors happy. So he's desperate for cash, Curtis mused. Hence your wife's trust fund. Exactly. But there's more. Roman clicked through to another file. McCarthy has a silent partner in his developments, Nathaniel Roy, a loan shark with organized crime connections. Roy's been financing McCarthy's projects when the banks wouldn't, but the terms are brutal. McCarthy owes him $4 million, due in 6 weeks. Curtis sat back, understanding dawning. If McCarthy doesn't pay, Roy's people aren't known for their patience. McCarthy needs Christie's money to survive, which means he needs me dead. Roman's voice was flat, emotionless. But what if we make McCarthy believe he has another option? I'm listening. For the next hour, Roman outlined his plan. It was risky, legally questionable, and required perfect timing. But it would work. It had to work. Curtis finally nodded. You'll need someone on the inside. Someone McCarthy trusts. Already got that covered. Roman pulled up a photo of a woman in her 30s, professional headshot, kind eyes. Angela Barrera. She's a real estate agent McCarthy uses for his luxury properties. I approached her yesterday with some interesting information about her boss. She willing to help? Let's just say Angela's commission checks have been bouncing, and McCarthy owes her $80,000 in unpaid fees. She's motivated. The second member of Roman's team arrived that evening. Wes Steele, a tech specialist who'd worked with Roman on classified operations that officially never happened. Wes looked like a college professor, complete with wire-rimmed glasses and rumpled jacket, but he could hack into systems that supposedly didn't exist. Heard you need some digital magic, Wes said, setting up his laptop array on the hotel suite's desk. I need access to McCarthy's communications. Everything, calls, texts, emails. Wes's fingers were already flying across his keyboard. That's illegal, you know. So is attempted murder. Fair point. Wes worked in silence for 20 minutes, then smiled. Got him. McCarthy uses the same password for everything. His mother's maiden name plus his birth year. Amateur hour. Roman read through the intercepted messages, his jaw tightening with each one. Texts between McCarthy and Christie, discussing Roman's work schedule, his habits, when he'd be home alone. Messages to a contact saved only as M, planning the gas leak, discussing payment, ensuring the tampering would look like an accident. This is enough for an arrest, Curtis said, reading over Roman's shoulder. Not yet. Roman's voice was cold. I want him to confess. I want Christie to hear it from his own mouth. And I want Nathaniel Roy to know exactly what kind of partner he's been doing business with. Wes pulled up another screen. Speaking of Roy, his organization has been sniffing around McCarthy's finances. There's chatter on their communication channels. They know McCarthy's in trouble. They're planning to meet with him tomorrow night at the Velvet Room, that private club downtown. Roman's mind raced. Can we get audio in there? Can I breathe? Wes grinned. Give me 4 hours, and I'll have that place wired better than the Pentagon. Angela Barrera arrived at midnight, nervous but determined. She was petite, with the polished appearance of someone who'd fought hard for professional credibility and wasn't about to let a con man destroy it. I've been documenting everything, she told Roman, pulling out her own files. Fake inspection reports, bribes to city officials, properties sold with hidden defects. McCarthy's been running scams for years, but he's always one step ahead of the law. Not anymore. Roman showed her the intercepted communications. Tomorrow night, McCarthy meets with Nathaniel Roy. We're going to make sure that meeting doesn't go as planned. What do you need from me? I need you to set up a meeting with McCarthy. Tell him you have a cash buyer for his Riverside development, the one that's been sitting empty for 18 months. A buyer willing to pay above market. Close in 2 weeks. Make it irresistible. Angela's eyes widened. There is no buyer. There will be. He'll be sitting right here. Roman gestured to Curtis. Former oil executive, new money, bad taste, and desperate to break into high society real estate. McCarthy's perfect mark. Curtis raised his hand. I object to the bad taste part of that characterization. Despite everything, Roman felt the ghost of a smile. Can you do it, Angela? She nodded slowly. McCarthy's desperate enough to meet with anyone right now. He'll jump at this. Good. Set it up for tomorrow afternoon, before his meeting with Roy. That gives us 12 hours to prep. Roman turned to his team. These people who dropped everything to help him. What we're doing isn't strictly legal. If anyone wants out, walk away now. No judgment. No one moved. Eugene spoke from the corner, where he'd been quietly observing. That son of a bitch tried to kill my neighbor, my friend. I'm in until the end. Then let's get to work, Roman said. McCarthy thinks he's won. Tomorrow, we show him what losing really looks like. Chapter 5. The Convergence. The next day moved like a chess game, each piece sliding into position while McCarthy remained oblivious in the center of the board. Angela made the call at 9 a.m., her voice perfectly calibrated between enthusiasm and professionalism. Jonathan, I have someone you need to meet. Texas Oil Money, looking to diversify, and he's very interested in the Riverside property. Roman listened to the conversation through Wes's equipment, watching McCarthy's calendar update in real time as the meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. At noon, Roman made his own call to Christie. Roman. Her voice carried surprise and something else. Guilt? Fear? I heard about the house. Are you okay? I'm fine. Gas leak, apparently. They're calling it an accident. He kept his tone neutral, giving nothing away. Look, I know things have been rough between us. I was thinking maybe we could talk. Really talk. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., that Italian place you love? The pause stretched. She was probably texting McCarthy right now, asking what to do. Ah, yes. Okay. Tomorrow night. Good. See you then, Christie. He ended the call, his hands steady despite the anger burning in his chest. Wes looked up from his screens. She bought it. She thinks she did. Tomorrow night, she'll show up expecting to have the conversation. Probably rehearsed with McCarthy how she'll ask for a divorce, play the victim, walk away clean while I'm none the wiser about the affair. But tomorrow night never comes, Curtis said, understanding. Because tonight, McCarthy's world ends. At 2 p.m., Curtis walked into McCarthy Development's penthouse office dressed in a custom suit, playing the part of Alan Jennings, oil executive with more money than sense. Angela had coached him on the details, and Curtis sold it perfectly. Roman watched through a camera Angela had positioned on her lapel pin, listening as Curtis and McCarthy talked numbers, profit margins, the potential of the Riverside development. McCarthy was smooth. Roman had to give him that. Charming, confident, painting a picture of investment returns that would make any buyer salivate. But Roman could see the desperation underneath, the way McCarthy's eyes tracked Curtis's expensive watch, the slight tremor in his hand when discussing the closing timeline. He needed this sale. Needed it to pay off Roy, to survive. I'll have my people draw up the preliminary contracts, McCarthy said, extending his hand. We can close in 10 days if you're ready to move. Curtis shook it, his grip firm. My lawyers will be in touch. Looking forward to doing business, Jonathan. Roman switched channels as Curtis left the building, now monitoring McCarthy's communications. Within minutes, McCarthy was texting Christy, big deal coming through. We're going to be fine, baby. Trust me. Then a call to Roy. Nathaniel, about our meeting tonight. I'll have your money ahead of schedule. Full payment, plus interest. Roy's response was cool. See you at 8. Don't be late. Roman checked his watch. 6 hours until the Velvet Room meeting. 6 hours to set the final pieces in place. Wes had spent the morning at the Velvet Room, using a fake electrical inspection cover to place audio devices in Roy's private booth. Now they sat in the hotel suite, multiple screens showing different camera angles, audio levels, encrypted communication channels. This is either genius or suicide, Wes muttered, running system checks. Sometimes they're the same thing, Roman replied. At 6 p.m., Detective Patton called. Atkinson, we've been analyzing the evidence you provided. The fake utility worker? We got an ID from traffic cameras. Name's Marco Doherty, known associate of, you're going to love this. Nathaniel Roy. Roman felt the pieces clicking together. Roy and McCarthy used Roy's guy to stage my murder. They're partners in more than just real estate. Looks that way. We're building a RICO case, but it takes time. You still planning your 48-hour miracle? 24 now. And yes. Patton sighed. Try not to die or kill anyone. It creates paperwork. At 7:30, Roman's team moved into position. Eugene took a table at the restaurant across from the Velvet Room, a simple tourist with a camera who liked photographing interesting buildings. Curtis positioned himself at the bar inside the Velvet Room, just another wealthy patron having a drink. Roman stayed in the van outside with Wes, surrounded by monitors and recording equipment. Here comes McCarthy, Wes said, tracking the luxury sedan pulling up to the club's entrance. Jonathan McCarthy stepped out, looking every inch the successful developer in his $1,000 suit. He moved with the confidence of a man who believed he'd won, that his problems were solved, that the money from Curtis's fake deal would save him. He had no idea he was walking into an execution. Roy was already waiting in the private booth, a man who'd built an empire on fear and broken bones. At 65, he was still dangerous, cold eyes, hands that had done violence, and the patience of a predator. Jonathan, Roy greeted him, no warmth in his voice. You said you have my money? The deal closes in 10 days, McCarthy said, settling into the booth. For $1 million, plus your 20% interest. You'll have everything. Roy's expression didn't change. I've heard that before. This is different. Real buyer, real money. You just need time. Always time with you, Jonathan. Roy leaned forward. Do you know what happens to people who waste my time? Roman watched the tension build, saw McCarthy's confidence start to crack. This was the moment when a cornered man revealed his true nature. I've done everything you asked, McCarthy said, his voice rising. The Riverside development, the waterfront project, all of it financed by you. We're partners. Partners. Roy's laugh was ugly. You're a client who's behind on payments. That's all. McCarthy's face flushed. I got rid of the problem. The husband, he's gone. That trust fund money will be available as soon as the estate clears. You'll get everything you're owed. Roman's blood turned to ice. There it was, the confession, recorded in crystal clarity. Roy frowned. What husband? My girl's husband. He was in the way, so I had Marco take care of it. Gas leak, clean and simple. She'll get the insurance money, the trust fund, and we split it down the middle. You killed someone? Roy's voice was deadly quiet. Had him killed. There's a difference. Roman watched as Roy's expression shifted from irritation to cold calculation. This was the danger in McCarthy's confession. Roy was a criminal, but he had rules. Murder for profit brought heat, attention, the kind of scrutiny that destroyed organizations. You brought this to my doorstep, Roy said slowly. You used my man for a murder. Our man. And it's handled. No one knows. No one suspects. Except the cops are investigating, Roy interrupted. I have people who keep me informed, Jonathan. Your little gas leak? The police are calling it attempted murder. The husband survived. McCarthy's face went white. That's impossible. Marco said what you wanted to hear. But the target is alive, and worse, he's talking. Which means this whole operation is compromised, because you couldn't keep your dick in your pants. Roman nodded to Wes. Send it. Wes hit a button, and every screen in the Velvet Room, the TVs behind the bar, the tablet menus, the security monitors, switched to the same feed. A video compilation of McCarthy and Christie together, time-stamped and dated. McCarthy entering Christie's hotel room. McCarthy and Christie at romantic dinners. McCarthy discussing the Riverside deal, the fake inspection reports, the bribes. And finally, the last 60 seconds, McCarthy's own words from moments ago, confessing to attempted murder. The Velvet Room erupted in chaos. Patrons seeing the evidence, staff scrambling, and Roy sitting very, very still, staring at the screen. You stupid, arrogant child, Roy said quietly. You've destroyed everything. McCarthy was on his feet, looking around wildly. This is a setup. Someone's. Me. Roman's voice came through the speakers, calm and controlled. Hello, Jonathan. Enjoying the show? McCarthy's eyes found the cameras, and for the first time, fear replaced arrogance. You're dead, McCarthy hissed. Clearly not. But your career, your freedom, your life as you know it? Those are definitely dead. Roman's voice was ice. You tried to kill me for money. You seduced my wife, planned my murder, and thought you'd gotten away with it. But you forgot something, Jonathan. What's that? I'm better at this than you. The doors to the Velvet Room burst open, and Detective Patton walked in with a dozen officers, warrants in hand. Jonathan McCarthy, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud. Nathaniel Roy, you're under arrest for racketeering, conspiracy, and about 15 other charges we'll get to at the station. Roman watched it all unfold on the monitors, McCarthy's face crumbling, Roy's cold acceptance, the handcuffs clicking into place. Curtis slipped out in the confusion, meeting Eugene at the van. Beautiful work, Eugene said, climbing into the passenger seat. Not done yet, Roman replied. One more stop to make. Chapter 6, The Queen Falls. Christie Atkinson sat in the Italian restaurant, checking her watch for the third time. Roman was 15 minutes late, unusual for a man who prided himself on punctuality. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. We need to talk. Urgent. Before she could respond, Roman slid into the seat across from her. He looked different, harder somehow, his eyes carrying a weight that made her uncomfortable. For a moment, Christie felt a flutter of the old attraction, the strength that had drawn her to him before the marriage became routine, before Jonathan made her feel young and desired again. Sorry I'm late, Roman said, his voice neutral. Had some business to take care of. It's fine. Christie tried for a smile. I'm glad we're doing this. I think we need to talk about us. About us. Roman leaned back, studying her the way he used to study mission reports. You're right. We do need to talk about us. About our marriage. About what comes next. Christie had practiced this conversation with Jonathan a dozen times. The script was simple. She was unhappy. They'd grown apart. It wasn't anyone's fault. She wanted a divorce. Clean, amicable, no drama. But something in Roman's eyes made the words stick in her throat. I've been thinking about the night of the gas leak, Roman continued, his tone conversational. Strange timing, don't you think? You happened to be out of town. I happened to be home alone. Very convenient. Roman, what are you? Where were you that night, Christie? Really? She felt her heartbeat quicken. I told you. At Jennifer's. Funny. I called Jennifer. She said you haven't stayed with her in 6 months. Roman pulled out his phone, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a photo, Christie entering the Grandview Hotel penthouse, time-stamped for the night of the murder attempt. Christie's face went pale. You're having me followed? Turn state's evidence. He's testifying against both McCarthy and Roy in exchange for 15 years instead of life. Between him, Roy's confession, and the recording from the Velvet Room, we've got an airtight case. Good. No. I'm married to a woman who's been lying to me for 4 months. I'm simply confirming what I already knew. Roman's voice remained steady, but she could hear the edge underneath. Jonathan McCarthy, real estate developer. Your lover. Want to tell me about him? Christy looked around the restaurant, desperate for an escape that didn't exist. It's not what you think. Really? Because I think you fell for a con man who seduced you to get access to your trust fund. I think he made you feel special, made you promises about a life together, made you believe I was the problem in our marriage. Roman leaned forward. And I think he convinced you that the only way to be happy was if I was out of the picture. Permanently. No. The word came out as a whisper. No, that's not. Jonathan wouldn't. Roman played a video on his phone, McCarthy at the Velvet Room, confessing to having Marco take care of the husband problem. Christy watched her lover describe arranging Roman's murder with the casual indifference of ordering lunch. She felt the room spin, while rising in her throat. Oh my God, he used you, Roman said, not unkindly. You were a mark, Christy, a means to an end. He needed your money to pay off debts, and the easiest way to get it was to make you a widow. Tears were streaming down Christy's face now, her carefully maintained composure shattering. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know he was going to. I never wanted you hurt. But you wanted out. You wanted the fantasy he was selling, the luxury, the excitement, the feeling of being desired. Roman's voice was steady, facts without judgment. You were going to ask for a divorce tonight, weren't you? Christy nodded, unable to speak. Except Jonathan didn't want a divorce. He couldn't wait for the trust fund penalties, couldn't afford the legal fees, couldn't risk you changing your mind. So he decided to kill me and make it look like an accident. Were you really so blind, Christy? Or did some part of you know and just choose not to look? I didn't know, she repeated, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. All those conversations with Jonathan about Roman's work schedule, his habits, when he'd be home. She'd thought they were just venting, complaints about an absent spouse. But now she saw them for what they were, reconnaissance for murder. Jonathan's been arrested, Roman said, putting his phone away. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud. Nathaniel Roy too. Apparently Jonathan was in deep with organized crime. The police have everything. The communications, the payment to Marco Doherty for the gas leak, the confession at the Velvet Room. The Velvet Room? I recorded his confession tonight. Played it for everyone to see. Roman's smile was cold. He thought he'd won, right up until the moment he realized he'd lost everything. Christy was crying openly now, mascara running, the perfect image she'd maintained crumbling in real time. What happens to me? That's up to the police. You'll be questioned about your involvement. The affair, the communications with McCarthy, whether you had knowledge of the murder plot. Roman stood, pulling out his wallet and leaving cash on the table for the untouched wine. I get a good lawyer, Christy. You're going to need one. Roman, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He looked at her for a long moment. This woman he'd loved for 12 years, who'd shared his bed and his life, who'd thrown it all away for a con man's lies. I know you are. Sorry you got caught. Sorry your lover turned out to be a criminal. Sorry the fantasy ended. His voice softened slightly. But I don't think you're sorry for what you did to us. For the betrayal, the lies, the fact that your selfishness almost got me killed. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? For the first time, anger broke through Roman's control. I survived because my neighbor was paying attention. Because Eugene Wade noticed things you should have noticed, that your lover was a monster, that his plan was murder, that I was in danger. Where were you, Christy? Where was the woman who promised to love and protect me? She had no answer. Roman headed for the door, then paused. The trust fund has a clause about criminal activity. Your lawyers will find it. If you're convicted of conspiracy or accessory to attempted murder, you lose everything. The irony is beautiful. Really. Jonathan tried to kill me to get your money, and his plan means you'll end up with nothing anyway. What about you? Christy asked, her voice small. What are you going to do? Roman looked back at her, his expression unreadable. Move on. Build a life that doesn't include people who want me dead. It's a low bar, but apparently necessary. He walked out of the restaurant, leaving Christy alone with her tears and the wreckage of her choices. Outside, Eugene was waiting in the car. How'd she take it? About how you'd expect. Roman climbed into the passenger seat, feeling the weight of the day settling on his shoulders. She claimed she didn't know about the murder plot. You believe her? Roman was quiet for a moment, watching the restaurant through the side mirror. I don't know. Maybe she's telling the truth. Maybe she was just so caught up in the fantasy that she willfully ignored the signs. Either way, she made her choice. What now? Now we go home. Or what's left of it? Roman managed a tired smile. Thanks for having my back, Eugene. Always, brother. Always. Chapter 7. The Aftermath. 3 weeks after McCarthy's arrest, Roman stood in his repaired house, the smell of fresh paint and new carpeting a stark reminder of how close he'd come to death. The gas line had been replaced, the damage fixed, but the house still felt empty. Christy had moved out, staying with her sister for real this time, while her lawyers tried to navigate the legal minefield she'd created. The police had questioned her for hours, but ultimately couldn't prove she'd had knowledge of McCarthy's murder plan. The communications between them were damning, discussing Roman's schedule, his habits, but fell short of direct conspiracy. Still, the trust fund administrators weren't as forgiving. Christy was fighting them in civil court, but Roman's lawyers were confident she'd lose. The terms were clear. Any criminal activity, even by association, violated the conditions of inheritance. Roman should have felt vindicated. Instead, he mostly felt tired. He was reviewing case files for his security firm when Detective Patton called. Thought you'd want to know, McCarthy's trial date is set. 6 months from now. The DA is pushing for life without parole. And Roy, Nathaniel Roy, is singing like a canary. Gave up half the organized crime network in exchange for a reduced sentence. McCarthy's going down hard. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, racketeering. The evidence you gathered sealed it. Roman absorbed this news with grim satisfaction. What about Marco Diarty? The guy who actually tampered with my gas line. Patton was quiet for a moment. How are you doing, Roman? Really? I'm alive. That's more than McCarthy planned for me. That's not what I asked. Roman looked around his empty house, thinking about 12 years of marriage, the dreams they'd built and destroyed. I'm processing, taking it one day at a time. If you need anything, I know where to find you, Detective. Thanks. After the call ended, Roman made another, to Angela Barrera. Roman, I was just thinking about you. How's the house? Livable again. How's business? Angela laughed, a sound of genuine relief. Booming, actually. Turns out exposing a corrupt developer makes you very popular with clients who value honesty. I've gotten 3 new listings this week alone, and McCarthy's former clients are coming to me for representation. Glad something good came out of this mess. More than you know, the city is investigating all of McCarthy's developments. They found violations in almost every property, bribes, fake inspections, substandard materials. Hundreds of homeowners are getting restitution. Angela paused. You did a good thing, Roman. You stopped him before more people got hurt. Roman wasn't sure he agreed. His motivations had been revenge, not justice, but he accepted the sentiment. Stay in touch, Angela. And if you ever hear about suspicious developers, you know who to call. Absolutely. That afternoon, Curtis stopped by with Eugene, carrying Chinese food and beer. Intervention lunch, Curtis announced, unpacking containers on Roman's kitchen counter. You've been holed up here too long. Time to rejoin the living. I'm fine. You're surviving, Eugene corrected. Different thing. When's the last time you left this house for something other than work or police interviews? Roman couldn't remember. The days had blurred together, rebuilding the house, preparing for McCarthy's trial, managing his business, avoiding anything that felt personal or emotional. See? This is what we're talking about. Curtis handed him a beer. You took down a killer, saved your own life, and probably prevented McCarthy from hurting more people. That's worth celebrating. My wife tried to have me murdered. Forgive me if I'm not in a party mood. Eugene sat down at the counter, his cop eyes seeing too much. Christy made her choice. She chose wrong. But you can't let her bad decision define the rest of your life. I'm not. Aren't you? Curtis gestured at the house. You're living in the same place where someone tried to kill you, surrounded by reminders of a failed marriage, isolating yourself from everyone who cares about you. That's not moving on, brother. That's punishing yourself. Roman started to argue, then stopped. They weren't wrong. He'd been going through the motions, fixing the house, handling business, preparing for trials, but not actually living. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. I've survived combat, investigated terrorists, run operations in hostile territory. But this? A personal betrayal from someone I loved? I don't have a playbook for this. None of us do, Eugene said gently. But you don't have to figure it out alone. That's what friends are for. They ate in companionable silence, and Roman felt something in his chest loosen, a tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. The Meridian contract came through, Roman said eventually. Security overhaul for their entire corporate campus. 6-month project, 7 figures. Curtis raised his beer. See? Good things can still happen. I was thinking about expanding the business. Maybe bringing on partners. Roman looked at Curtis. You interested in running investigations full-time? Your firm could merge with mine. Create a comprehensive security and investigation service. Curtis's eyes widened. You're serious. I'm serious. You saved my life with your help on the McCarthy case. I trust you. I respect your work, and I think we'd make a hell of a team. Then I'm in. Curtis extended his hand, and they shook on it. Roman and Curtis Security Solutions. Has a nice ring to it. Atkinson Frank, Roman corrected with a small smile. I still get top billing. Fair enough. You did almost die. Eugene cleared his throat. Speaking of new ventures, I've been thinking about doing some consulting work. Teaching private investigation techniques, security awareness, that sort of thing. Retirement's boring. You're hired, Roman said immediately. We'll need someone to train new investigators anyway. For the first time in weeks, Roman felt something resembling hope. His marriage was over, his trust shattered, but he was alive. He had friends. He had purpose. And he had the satisfaction of knowing that Jonathan McCarthy would spend the rest of his life in prison, paying for his crimes. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was a life he could build. Chapter 8, Unexpected Allies. 2 months later, Roman sat in the courtroom as McCarthy's trial began. The prosecution had built their case meticulously, using every piece of evidence Roman had gathered, every recording, every document. Jonathan McCarthy looked diminished in his prison jumpsuit, the arrogance stripped away to reveal the desperate, small man underneath. His expensive lawyers tried their best, but the evidence was overwhelming. The testimony began with Detective Patton, walking the jury through the investigation. Then Marco Diarty, describing how McCarthy had hired him to tamper with Roman's gas line, paid him $10,000 to commit murder. Did Mr. McCarthy explain why he wanted Roman Atkinson dead? The prosecutor asked. Said the guy's wife had money. Trust fund or something. Said if the husband died, she'd inherit everything, and they could be together. Marco's voice was flat, emotionless. I told him it was a bad idea. Too many ways it could go wrong. But he insisted. Said he owed money to dangerous people and needed this. The courtroom murmured, jurors taking notes, McCarthy's lawyers objecting to everything and getting nowhere. Then came Nathaniel Roy. The crime boss looked older in custody, the power stripped away to reveal a calculating predator. But his testimony was devastating, describing how McCarthy had approached him for financing, how the relationship had deteriorated, how McCarthy had confessed to the murder plot at the Velvet Room. In my business, we have rules, Roy said, his voice carrying the weight of violence. You don't bring heat. You don't attract attention. You don't make stupid decisions that endanger the organization. McCarthy broke all those rules. So what did you plan to do about it? The prosecutor asked. Roy's smile was cold. I was going to cut him loose. Let him sink on his own. But then Mr. Atkinson provided the police with all that evidence, and McCarthy's problems became public. Can't ignore that. On the third day, it was Roman's turn. He walked to the witness stand, acutely aware of McCarthy's eyes on him, the man who tried to kill him for money sitting 20 feet away. The prosecutor led him through his testimony, discovering the affair, Eugene's warning, the gas leak, the investigation that followed. Roman kept his voice steady, his answers precise, giving the jury facts without emotion. But when the defense attorney stood for cross-examination, Roman felt his jaw tighten. Mr. Atkinson, isn't it true that you engaged in illegal surveillance of my client? The lawyer asked, his tone accusatory. I monitored my wife's location and communications, which is legal for a spouse to do. You hacked into Mr. McCarthy's emails. I accessed publicly available information and used legal tools to gather evidence of a crime being committed against me. Everything I did to save my life. The lawyer wasn't deterred. You set up an elaborate sting operation without police involvement. You coerced witnesses, manipulated evidence. Objection. The prosecutor interrupted. Counsel is testifying, not questioning. Sustained. Get to your point, counselor. The defense attorney tried another angle. Mr. Atkinson, you have military intelligence training, correct? You know how to manipulate people, create false scenarios, extract confessions. I know how to recognize threats and respond appropriately. Did you manipulate the situation at the Velvet Room to make my client say things he didn't mean? Roman met the lawyer's eyes steadily. Your client confessed to attempted murder. He described hiring Marco Diarty to tamper with my gas line. He did this voluntarily, believing he'd gotten away with it. The only thing I manipulated was giving him enough rope to hang himself. No further questions, the lawyer said, sitting down with visible frustration. Roman left the stand feeling drained but satisfied. He'd told his truth, and the jury had listened. That evening, as he walked to his car in the courthouse parking lot, a woman approached him. Mr. Atkinson? I'm Catherine Wiggins. We spoke on the phone. Roman recognized McCarthy's first wife immediately, the fear still present in her eyes, but also a fierce determination. Mrs. Wiggins, I didn't expect to see you here. I flew in to testify tomorrow. About Jonathan, about what he did to me. Catherine hugged herself despite the warm evening. I've been terrified of him for years. But watching you take him down, seeing him in that courtroom powerless, I realized I could be brave too. What you're doing takes real courage. So does surviving what you survived. Catherine looked at him with understanding. He destroys people. It's what he does. But you didn't let him destroy you. That's inspiring. Roman didn't feel inspiring. He felt angry and hurt and betrayed. But he managed a nod. Your testimony will help put him away for good, he said. That matters. I hope so. I hope he never gets the chance to hurt anyone else. Catherine pulled out a business card. If you ever need to talk, someone who understands what it's like to escape Jonathan McCarthy's orbit, call me. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who's been there. Roman took the card, oddly touched. Thank you, and good luck tomorrow. He watched her walk away. This woman who'd survived McCarthy's abuse and come back to testify against him, and felt a strange kinship. They were both survivors, both rebuilding their lives from the ashes of McCarthy's destruction. The next day, Catherine's testimony was devastating. She described years of psychological abuse, financial manipulation, threats against her family. The jury listened with visible anger, and Roman saw McCarthy shrink further in his seat. When the prosecution rested, McCarthy's lawyers tried their best with character witnesses and technical objections. But nothing could overcome the mountain of evidence. The recordings, the testimony, the documented pattern of behavior. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Roman was in his office when the verdict came down, but Curtis called immediately. We won, brother. Life without parole. McCarthy's going away forever. Roman leaned back in his chair, feeling the weight of the past months finally lift. Good. There's more. The judge made a statement about predators hiding behind wealth and charm. Said McCarthy represented everything wrong with a system that protects the powerful. It was brutal. And Christie, still fighting the trust fund case. But her lawyers are advising her to settle. Between the affair, the association with McCarthy, and the civil penalties, she's looking at losing about 80% of her inheritance. Roman should have felt satisfaction. Instead, he mostly felt sad for the marriage that had failed, for the person Christie had become, for the waste of it all. You okay? Curtis asked, reading his silence. Yeah. It's over. Really over. And I don't know what that feels like yet. Feels like freedom, eventually. Trust me. Curtis paused. Listen, Wes and I are taking you out tonight. Proper celebration. No arguments. Curtis. No arguments. You earned this, Roman. Let yourself feel it. Roman smiled despite himself. Fine. But nowhere fancy. I've had enough of high society for a lifetime. Deal. Eugene's coming too. We'll pick you up at 7. After the call, Roman sat in his office, looking at the business he'd built, the life he was reconstructing. McCarthy was behind bars. Christie would face her own consequences. Justice, imperfect but real, had been served. For the first time since finding that note under his door, Roman felt like he could breathe. Chapter 9, New Beginnings. 6 months after McCarthy's conviction, Roman stood in his new office, the expanded headquarters of Atkinson Frank Security Solutions. The space was modern, professional, and buzzing with activity as investigators, security consultants, and support staff worked on cases ranging from corporate espionage to personal protection. Curtis walked in with coffee and a satisfied grin. The Riverside development just sold. City condemned it, tore down McCarthy's substandard construction, and approved a new project, affordable housing with proper oversight. Angela's firm is handling the real estate. Poetic justice, Roman mused, accepting the coffee. McCarthy's failed empire becomes something that actually helps people. Speaking of which, Eugene's class is full. We've got 20 students signed up for his private investigation certification program. Guy's a natural teacher. Roman felt genuine pride. They'd built something good from the wreckage, a business that helped people, that operated with integrity, that made a difference. His phone buzzed with a text from Detective Patton. Thought you'd want to know. Roy got 25 years, Darty got 12. Everyone involved in your case is behind bars. Sleep well, Atkinson. Roman showed Curtis the message. It's really over. How does it feel? Like I can finally start the next chapter. That evening, Roman drove to the Italian restaurant where his marriage had effectively ended. But this time, he was meeting someone new. Catherine Wiggins had reached out a few weeks ago, suggesting dinner when she was in town for business. He arrived early, old habits from his intelligence days making him scope out the location, note the exits, assess the crowd. But when Catherine walked in, he relaxed. She looked different from the frightened woman in the courthouse parking lot. Confident now, her fear replaced with hard-won strength. Roman, she greeted him with a genuine smile. Thanks for meeting me. Thanks for suggesting it. How have you been? They settled into easy conversation, two people who'd survived the same predator comparing notes on rebuilding their lives. Catherine had started a non-profit helping domestic abuse survivors navigate the legal system. Roman told her about the business expansion, the satisfaction of doing work that mattered. I saw the news about McCarthy's appeals being denied, Catherine said. He's really going to spend the rest of his life in prison. Good. Does that bring you closure? Roman considered the question. Not closure exactly, but justice. And that's enough. Catherine nodded, understanding. I've learned that closure is overrated. Moving forward is what matters. They talked for hours about healing, about growth, about the unexpected ways trauma could reshape a life into something different but potentially stronger. Roman found himself laughing genuinely for the first time in months, enjoying the connection with someone who understood. I should probably tell you, Catherine said as they shared dessert. I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm still figuring out who I am outside of fear and survival. I get that. Trust me. Roman smiled. But I'd like to stay in touch. As friends. If that's okay. I'd like that too. They parted with a promise to keep talking, to support each other's continued healing, to build something positive from the ashes of McCarthy's destruction. Roman drove home, not to the old house, which he'd sold a month ago, but to a new condo downtown. Smaller, modern, with no memories of Christie or failed dreams. Just space for building something new. Eugene was waiting in the lobby, a bottle of bourbon in hand. Thought you might want company for the final official act. What final act? Eugene pulled out papers. Your divorce. It's finalized. Christie signed yesterday. Roman took the documents, seeing his marriage reduced to legal terminology and asset divisions. Christie had settled for a fraction of what she'd hoped for, the trust fund penalties and legal fees eating away at her inheritance. Roman had taken only what was his, refusing to profit from her downfall. How do you feel? Eugene asked as they rode the elevator up to Roman's floor. Free, Roman said, and realized it was true. Angry still, sometimes. Hurt, but mostly just free. They settled into Roman's new living room, the space sparse but comfortable, a blank canvas for whatever came next. To new beginnings, Eugene raised his glass. To survival, Roman countered. And the people who help us survive. They drank, and Roman looked around his new home, his new life, the future stretching out with possibilities he hadn't imagined when Eugene had slipped that warning note under his door. His phone buzzed again. Angela Barrera, sending photos of the new affordable housing project breaking ground where McCarthy's Riverside development had stood. Curtis texting about 3 new contracts. Wes sharing news about a security innovation they could implement. And a message from Catherine. Thanks for tonight. It's nice to know I'm not alone in this. You're not, Roman replied. None of us are. He stood at his window, looking out at the city lights, thinking about the journey from that terrifying moment when Eugene warned him to run, to this quiet evening of hard-won peace. McCarthy was in prison. Christie was dealing with consequences of her choices. The people who'd tried to destroy Roman were destroyed instead. But more than revenge or justice, Roman had found something unexpected: resilience. Community. The knowledge that he could be broken and still rebuild, could be betrayed and still trust, could face death and still choose to live fully. The old Roman, the one who'd been married to Christie, who'd trusted too easily, who'd missed the warning signs, that person was gone. In his place stood someone harder but also stronger, someone who knew the cost of naivety but hadn't let cynicism win. What's next for you? Eugene asked, refilling their glasses. Roman considered the question. Keep building the business. Keep helping people who need security, who need investigation, who need someone willing to fight for them. He smiled. Maybe take a vacation. I hear there are places in the world where people don't try to kill you. Overrated, Eugene deadpanned, and they both laughed. But seriously, Roman continued, I'm going to live. Really live, not just survive. McCarthy tried to take that from me, and I'm not giving him that power. Every day I wake up, every success I have, every person I help, that's my revenge. Being happy despite him, thriving because I'm stronger than his worst intentions. Eugene raised his glass again. I'll drink to that. As the night grew late and Eugene headed home, Roman stood on his balcony, breathing in the cool air, feeling the weight of the past months settling into memory rather than immediate pain. He thought about the boy who'd joined the military to serve something bigger than himself, the intelligence officer who'd learned to read threats and respond, the businessman who'd built success from skills and determination, and the survivor who'd faced betrayal and death and come out the other side. All those versions of himself had led to this moment, standing in a new home, surrounded by good people, building a life defined not by what had been taken from him, but by what he'd chosen to create. His phone buzzed one last time, a reminder for tomorrow's meeting with a potential client, a woman whose abusive ex-husband was stalking her, who needed someone who understood predators and how to stop them. Roman accepted the appointment, knowing that his experience, all of it, even the painful parts, made him uniquely qualified to help. The neighbor's warning had saved his life. But what Roman did with that life after, that was all him. He went to bed that night without nightmares for the first time in months, secure in his new home, his new beginning, his hard-won freedom. And when morning came, Roman Atkinson woke up ready to face whatever came next, not as a victim, not as a target, but as a survivor who'd turned his greatest trial into his greatest strength. The end. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.